Hello, heathens. I'm Megan Angus, and this is Spinning the Wheel podcast. In this weekly audio ritual, we explore the 8 seasons of the witch's wheel of the year, and we discover how it is so much more than 8 Sabbats. We weirding witches time travel through holy days, festivals, and celestial events connecting our celebrations and magic to the past, present, and future. Our cackling fills the night as we take our turn gathering the wool, wielding the distaff, and spinning the wheel. And welcome back, my heathens. I hope everybody is having a fantastic week in the midst of all of this. Gestures vaguely. Thank you for joining me yet again here on Spinning the Wheel podcast. My name is Megan Angus, and I really don't know what I'm doing with myself. Join me in chaos. Okay, let's actually get into some stuff. Mostly, I just want to get right into it. There's not a lot of announcements or anything this week. So I guess one thing, I have mentioned several times that I'm going to be hosting a multi-week Welcome to Tarot workshop, which is an intensive introduction to tarot. I want to make sure that you've got your foundations right. This is going to be a fantastic workshop. I love it. I love teaching it. I've had a lot of really incredible and positive feedback. So people love taking this class or these classes, and that's always really cool. I was going to host it or start it this month, but I've pushed it back a little bit. The tickets for that are going to go on sale Friday the 12th of August for patrons first. And then I will release the link to folks who are subscribed to my newsletter, and then I will post it publicly through my social media channels and on my website. Folks who are signed up to Patreon get discounts on stuff like this. So if you want to know about this first, if you want to have a discount code to use anywhere from 5 to 30% off the price, sign up to Patreon, plus all of the other incredible stuff that you get through my Patreon. Yeah, it's incredible because I'm a badass. I don't know what you're doing. Actually, I know what you're doing. You're also being a badass. That's why we're here together in this place, in this time. Here we go. Okay, that's coming up soon. Yes, this workshop has sold out every time that I have offered it. So that's all I'm going to say about that. Tickets are going to go on sale tomorrow for patrons. And my newsletter is free to sign up for. You can sign up for that through my website. And yeah, okay. That's it. That's like literally it. I feel weird because normally I have like a half-hour introduction that's totally ridiculous. But we're just going to get right into it this week. So let's just get right into it this week. We are in Lughnasadh season. This is, I should say, here's the actual introduction to the podcast. I know what I'm doing. Okay, don't look at me like that. Lughnasadh season, full moon in Aquarius, lunar week 27 by some lunar calendars. Some. Lunar calendars are a thing. And there are a lot of civilizations and religious systems, spiritual practices, and magical practices that follow the moon very closely, and they do actually set their calendar by the lunar phases. That's not just something that we see in the past. We absolutely see that in the present as well. Muslims, Jews, Hindus, just off the top of my head, Buddhists, absolutely, et cetera, et cetera. A lot of folks. So, lunar weeks, they matter. Okay. We are in Lughnasadh season, and while we are working through Lughnasadh season, let us get centered here in the midst of the Sabbat that we are currently observing. It is Lughnasadh, also pronounced Lughnasadh, also known as Lammas. And the major themes, the major work for witches really centers around stuff having to do with power, maturation, leadership, and production and producing things. That's the baseline stuff that we're dealing with in Lughnasadh. And that can come through in situations that, show us traces of things like competition, personal power, fruits of labor, leadership, strength, performance, as well as we move deeper into Lughnasadh season, wisdom and sacrifice and taking the best of situations or whatever it is that we are producing. And so that's where we are at on the wheel in the midst of Lughnasadh season. This aligns us with Leo, and as we move through the last 4 weeks of Lughnasadh season, it aligns us with Virgo. We're going to talk about that more next week, because next week the sun is going to be moving into Virgo in tropical astrology. And yeah. And yeah, that's what's up. This week, we have a beautiful full moon in Aquarius, which we are going to talk about more deeper into the podcast. But this is our last, well, no, I'm going to talk about that later. We're coming back to the tease, the teasing. So savory, but no. We're going to wait. Okay. First off, what I want to talk about are the holy days that we are looking at this week. We're not going to talk about all of the holy days. If you would like a copy of the calendar for Lughnasadh season 2022, you can sign up to my Patreon at the $9 and higher level and get access to the Patreon bag of holding, wherein you will find the workbook, the 15, 20-page workbook for this Sabbath, the calendar for this Sabbath with literally hundreds of holidays past and present, astronomical events, astrological events, etc., etc. There's prayers, there's incense recipes, there's crafts, there's all kinds of stuff. Deities to work with, all of that. What else is in the Patreon bag of holding? Digital spells that I create every Sabbath for your phone and for your wide screens, your TVs, your laptops, what have you. There's also playlists in there and so much more. So we are going to talk about some of the holy days this week. We're not going to talk about all of them, but we have 3 groupings of holy days that really stand out for us this week. And just as a side note, hi, Queen of Tangents, if you're new here, it makes sense to me that we have a week that kind of has a variety of things going on with it. One, again, we have a full moon this week, and so that really centers us in a lot of our holiday and festival cycles. But also, as I mentioned, we are in the last days of Leo, and we are about to transition into the sun being in Virgo. And we also have this week a huge and long-standing, I guess is the right way to say that, a meteor shower that has been around for a really long time. And so the combination of those 3 things means that these 3 collections of holy days are sort of centered in this week. They're all kind of mixed up together in this week. So, okay, so what are they? Well, one, we have several holy days that are really focused on the harvest, things coming to fruition, and the labor around harvest and growing stuff and producing things. And then we have a collection of holidays dedicated to ancestor worship and ancestor work. And then we also have a collection of holy days this week that are really dedicated to the idea of wisdom and the embodiment of wisdom in goddesses, and wisdom of a very particular sort, not just wisdom in general, smarty pants in general, but a very particular type of wisdom that is also centered on production, and connecting to dead ancestors. How appropriate and convenient. Okay, so coming back to that first collection of holidays, holy days, festivals that are happening past and present this week that are dedicated to the harvest. Of course, Lughnasadh season is the first harvest. This is the grain harvest throughout the Northern Hemisphere. We have from our Roman friends and ancestors, honestly, just like a mess of holidays. Starting August 11th with the full moon, we have Nemoralia, which is a feast dedicated to the goddess Diana, which we're going to talk about kind of a lot. We have another festival from our Roman friends and ancestors dedicated to the god Vortumnus, or the deity, really. I think that this deity is more genderless than they are gendered. Also, Roman friends and ancestors, we have the festival of Pomonia. We also have the Dies Natalis for the temples of Fortuna Equestris, Hercules Invictus, Castor and Pollux, and Carmene, and Flora. This is all happening in our Roman ancient past, and people who celebrate Roman holidays today. Uh, and so, what's up with that? Well, we'll get into who all is being worshipped there in just a second, because we also this week, running from August 13th to 16th, from our Greek friends and ancestors, we have Eleusinia. And no, that is not the Eleusis mysteries, but yes, those are coming up very soon. And we also have, who else? What else? I know that there's something else. Am I wrong? No. From our Greek friends and ancestors, we have Venalia. Okay, so all of these holidays, or just about all of these holidays that I've just listed off, are dedicated to the harvest or the cycle of seasons, and this being the season of growing and harvesting. But in particular, I'm really interested in this festival to Diana. So I'll read you the description that I found online about this. This is Nemoralia, also known as the Festival of Torches or the Hecatian Ides. So the Ides in our Roman calendars always correspond to somebody out there saying the 15th of the month. No, it was the full moon specifically is what it actually connects to. And so if you were a civilization that started your month on the new moon, somewhere between the 13th, the 14th, and the 15th is where you would have your full moon. That's what the Ides are, is that center day of the lunar cycle. Now we say that the Ides are automatically connected to the 15th no matter what. But back in the day, it was the 15th day of the lunar cycle. So just a little detail there. But did you also notice the other word, Hecatian, as in Hecate or Hecate? Yes, absolutely that. So the Nemoralia is a 3-day festival originally celebrated by the ancient Romans on the Ides of August. That would be August 13th to 15th, in honor of the goddess Diana. And here is what the first century poet Statius wrote about this festival. Quote, "It is the season when the most scorching region of the heavens takes over the land, and the keen dog star Sirius, so often struck by Hyperion's sun, burns the gasping fields. Now is the day when Trivia's Arician grove, convenient for fugitive kings, grows smoky, and the lake, having guilty knowledge of Hippolytus, glitters with the reflection of a multitude of torches. Diana herself garlands the deserving hunting dogs and polishes the arrowheads and allows the wild animals to go in safety, and at virtuous hearths all Italy celebrates the Hecatian Ides." So that's what Statius had to say about this little shindig. This is a torchlight procession, like the good kind. Okay, I know we've seen some some not so great torchlight processions. This is one of the good ones. Um, and it is a festival dedicated to Diana, but Diana in her triple form. And in that piece of writing, Stadius is acknowledging and invoking or evoking the goddess in her three forms: in her heavenly form, by mentioning the dog star Sirius; in her earthly form, by talking about the grove itself and the animals; and then also the underworld by referring to Hecate or Hecate. He also suggests, by the garlanding of the dogs and polishing of the spears, that no hunting was allowed during this festival. And that's an interesting side note because this harvest moon, or this moon, sorry, next month's moon is more of the harvest moon, but this month's moon is often a very popular hunting moon for some cultures around the world. But for Romans, this specifically was a time of no hunting. And dogs, of course, are very close to Diana. They're also very close to Hecate. And in this festival, at least part of the festival, was that the dogs were partying along with the people. They were celebrating along with the people. And so, of course, they were not out working and hunting. That was a big deal. But this holiday is dedicated to Diana, ultimately, who is the goddess of the hunt. And I wonder if this isn't about um, some type of worship, some type of ablution or offering to Diana, knowing that the hunt is going to kick up here soon enough as we eventually approach fall. And this is more maybe like an honoring of her and her works before we get into all of that. Um, we have this reverence to her in her triple form. And in particular, we have this reverence to her in connection to Hecate or Hecate. And Hecate is a goddess that is magical. She absolutely oversees witchcraft and sorcery and ritualism. She is often depicted carrying a torch with dogs and also carrying a set of keys. And she oversees the underworld in some forms of her myths. She hangs out with the dead in some of her myths, and we know that we have death work happening this week. We have ancestor work happening this week. So it's interesting that we have this goddess Diana being evoked in her multiple forms, but with this emphasis on her death aspect in Hecate. And this brings up a longstanding argument. Are these goddesses actually connected to each other or not? And we absolutely don't see them connected in some eras, and we absolutely do see them connected in other eras. And there is a blurring between the lines between Hecate and Diana and several other deities. And so, your mileage may vary. There's that. I'll say that. But ultimately, I think that there's something really interesting here about an emphasis on life and death at the same time. And that is undergirding a lot of the imagery of Lunasa or Lughnasadh. On the surface of it, it is the brilliance of the sun and its power and love and big-heartedness and generosity and, heat and the earth, producing and showing all of this life. But what happens to John Barleycorn, right? What happens to that golden head of grain? It's cut off, just like John the Baptist's head, who has several holy days at this time of year. So in life, there is the death. And in death, there is the renewing of life. Because once the head of the grain is cut off, that plant has an opportunity to shoot up another stalk and grow a new head of grain, or collapse, be composted back into the soil, and begin the growth cycle in total again, right? So there is something here in this holiday potentially around the idea, or tying together the ideas and the archetypal symbolism of life into death and death into life. And for me, that really is supported by the fact that we have these other holidays happening in this same time or this same week. Okay, so briefly, some of the other stuff that I mentioned. Vortumnus is a deity that is all about the seasons, change, and plant growth. This deity could change their form at will and change their shape at will. And so we know that the Romans and the Greeks really personified a lot of concepts as deities. And so this deity is literally the concept of the seasons, and really more the concept of seasons in change, changing seasons, and seasons, shifting from one place to the next, which I think is so cool. We also mentioned the goddess. There's a holiday dedicated on this day to the goddess Pomonia. Her name comes from the Latin word pomum, which absolutely connects to pomegranate, and that means fruit, specifically orchard fruit. And so here again, a fruitful abundance kind of vibe from this particular goddess. And then we have all of the dies natalis. The dies natalis we talked about before. I'll mention it again. That phrase dies natalis or dies natalis it means the day of birth. And the dies natalis, or the day of birth of temples dedicated to deities, was a really big deal to the Romans. They celebrated the birthdays of buildings as hard as they celebrated the birthdays of the deities that the temples were for. They really went in on this. And so this is it's almost like a rededication of the space to that deity. And so we have Fortuna Equestris, who we've talked about earlier in the year. This is fortune and fate as connected to horses. Hercules Invictus, and this is Hercules Everlasting, but Hercules earns this title after he has died. And so here we have another hero worshiping thing that ultimately is a hero falling down. This is connecting to some of our deepest Lughnasadh symbolism with deities like Crom Dubh, and as I mentioned already, John Barleycorn and St. John the Baptist, who are bright deities who fall, who crumple, who are crippled or maimed, or otherwise sort of brought down in their power, and others. So there's that stuff going on. Then moving on, and I'm probably forgetting something. I am Venalia. There we go. This is the rustica for Venalia rustica for Venus, also from our Roman friends and ancestors. And the Venalia specifically is a Roman harvest festival. It begins the wine harvest, or the grape harvest. Sorry. And it was held in honor of Jupiter and Venus. The first one is held back in April, and this is the second one. And the Venalia rustica was on August 19th, approximately, before the harvest and grape pressing. So it's kind of just a blessing of the fields before that stuff starts to get brought in. Okay, so then our second collection of holy days and festivals that we have this week are really centered around the dead. And before I get into that, actually one more holiday that I forgot to mention, because I mentioned it before and I want to clear it up. From August 13th through the 16th is the Eleusinia from our Greek friends and ancestors. And this is a harvest festival dedicated to the goddess Demeter, or Demeter, thanking her for the gift of grain. It was not held necessarily every year, and is not the Eleusinian mysteries. That is the greater mysteries, and we are going to be seeing those coming up very, very soon. But this was sort of a separate thing that was just dedicated to Demeter, thanking her for the literal physical harvest. Okay. Our second set of festivals that we're looking at this week are death festivals honoring ancestors. And so from August 13th to 16th, from our Buddhist friends and ancestors, we have the Bon Festival. From August 13th to 15th, we have from our Candomblé friends and ancestors. This is a branch of the Yoruba diaspora religions like Vodun and Santeria. We have the Festival of the Good Death, or Boa Mort. And from our Taoist friends and ancestors, we have the Hungry Ghost Festival. These are all taking place on the 13th. Um, and so the Bon Festival, this is a custom to honor the spirits of one's ancestors. Very straightforward. This evolved into a family reunion holiday during which people return to ancestral family places and visit and clean their ancestors' graves when the spirits of ancestors are supposed to revisit the household altars. This holiday has been celebrated in Japan for over 500 years, probably a lot longer than that. Um, and it has become a really big festival, a really big popular holiday for a lot of Japanese and Buddhist folks around the world. The Festival of the Good Death, Boa Mort. This is very much the same thing. It's sort of a celebration of the spirit of death itself, as well as ancestors who have passed. And it's always held really close to a Catholic holiday, which we are about to talk about, called the Assumption of Mary. And we will get into that in just a second. And so also mentioned on this day, the Hungry Ghost Festival from our Taoist friends and ancestors. And this is literally a day for feeding ghosts. Um, uh, this is thought to be a time when ghosts and spirits, including those of deceased ancestors, come out from the lower realms. And folks pay homage to their deceased ancestors during this festival. And it's a very similar thing. There's lots of family reunions that happen during this time, and then a tending of graves, and a tending of sites where the dead are kept and revered. Um, and what I have found doing this wheel work is we will have blooms of ancestor veneration holidays and festivals around the same time as a lot of our oldest meteor showers. And we know that in a lot of different practices in the northern hemisphere, and I say it that broadly because it really is just from continent to continent throughout the ages. When there are big meteor storms and meteor showers, we see ancestor veneration. And in a lot of cases, not all, but in a lot of cases, it is literally thought that the meteors are ancestors coming back to Earth to come and visit. Isn't that beautiful? How beautiful is that? Go out at night and watch these beautiful meteor showers, these brilliant sparks flying across the sky, and think, that's Uncle Jim bringing me back my $5 that he owed me that he tried to get away with. I love that, honestly. I think that's really beautiful. Okay. Also happening this week, we have a lot of these like wisdom holidays, and you're gonna ride with me on this, okay? Ride with me on this. But what do we see? We have the Assumption of Mary, from our Catholic friends and ancestors. And this is a holiday that kind of crosses over between this wisdom idea and our death idea, because the Assumption of Mary is literally when bodily Mary is taken up to heaven. It is the end of her earthly life. And so Mary, the mother of God, for Catholics, dies, as it were, but is, everlasting, that stuff. So she kind of transforms, in a sense, into her spirit, her, her final form, right? Her spirit bit. We also have from our Gnostic friends and ancestors a feast to Sophia. And Sophia is another goddess that really is sort of the embodiment of wisdom. We also have, at this same time, these are all happening August 15th. Sorry, I should have said that. August 16th, we have the Korotrophos from our Greek friends and ancestors. And this word means child rearing. And this festival was held to honor two goddesses who protect women and children in the midst of childbirth, specifically Hecate and Artemis. And so here again, we have Hecate popping up, right? What are you doing, girl? Hi, nice to see you. Goddess of witches, always welcome at the table. Come and have a beverage. But we also have this, right? And um, and then popping back a day, that's on the 16th, popping back to the August 15th, popping back a day from our Roman friends and ancestors. We also have a festival called Portunalia, which is literally a god of ports, of doors, of docks and doorways and keys. Um, this character, this deity, was thought to originally just protect warehouses, but then at some point became associated with ports because perhaps of folks' association between porta, gate or door, and portus, harbor or the gateway to the sea. Um, and so, as I said, ride with me here for a moment. As we end Leo season, we are leaving behind all of that Leo vibe, right? Which is magnanimous and brave and bold and loud and brash and all that stuff. And it's very into like production and leadership and all of that good stuff. And we are moving into Virgo season, which is a little more somber, but it is sort of the pre-funk for a lot of our goddesses around the world before we step into the full blown harvest cycle or harvest celebration that is Mabon or Mabon, uh, aka fall equinox, aka fall, which is really kind of thought of as like the harvest time in North America or in the northern hemisphere. Not that we're not there now, but just like it really goes into high gear at that point. And so we know that in a lot of our witchcraft and pagan symbology, we are going to see some goddesses change in their form or become more solidly and more obviously a quote unquote mother goddess because they are producing and giving birth to this grand harvest here on the physical plane, all of this plant world production that we're seeing. So, first off, we have wisdom being called in as a guide there. And that connects us to our ancestor work as well, right? We're asking ancestors in our veneration of them also maybe for some help to make sure that we do this right and that we don't screw up the harvest. If we screw up the harvest, we kind of screw ourselves all the way through till next summer, right? So it's not really something we can play with. We've got to get this right. But also, we are evoking or invoking these deities of wisdom and enlightenment and asking them for their guidance and all of that stuff too. And then we also have a little bit of this element of birthing or pre-birthing, right? Like honoring these goddesses that protect women and children or people who give birth, right? Let's just say that. Folks who give birth and the people who are being born. And oversee that whole process. And so there's an honoring of those deities as well. Artemis and Hecate, right? We have life and death right there in the mix. And we also have this festival of Portunalia. Now, one of the things that we are going to look at as we get deeper into Virgo season are Greek holidays and Egyptian holidays that are dedicated to goddesses that hold the doorway between life and death. So for me, all of this stuff really kind of wraps up together. We have several holidays that are celebrating this massive abundance of life. We have several holidays that are celebrating the dead. And we have these holidays that are celebrating deities of enlightenment that oversee the gateways or the doorways or the thresholds between life and death. Pretty cool shit. Pretty cool stuff. These, of course, are not the only days that are happening this week. There's a lot of other really cool stuff. We have the Osun Osogbo festival from our Nigerian friends and ancestors. Osun is or this festival is held towards or during the rainy season. You're usually during the last week of August. It's a traditional tribal festival for the Yoruba people, held to honor the river goddess Oshun. Um, and we've had other water festivals. We're going to have more water festivals as we move into Virgo season proper. And for me, I mean, the symbolism there is very straightforward, of the goddesses water breaking before they give birth to the great harvest that's coming soon. Um, I might really be projecting that onto that, but that's my job. Is to project that stuff. And also, we have some really cool New Year's stuff happening at this time of year. We have the Parsi New Year from our Zoroastrian friends and ancestors. And we will have more New Year's stuff coming as we move into Virgo season and September. So those are the big festivals that I wanted to cover this week, because I think that's really powerful symbolism for us to be working with, especially with the astrology that we have going on this week and some of the other stuff. Sitting at that crossroads, basically, of life and death, considering the abundance of life and that it's, in a sense, only shrinking from here. It's only going down from here, and that the contraction, basically, the boundary there on life is totally necessary to spur more growth later on in the cycle, or spur ultimately the next cycle to come around. So, in that work, sometimes we can feel really frustrated, we can feel really limited in the face of all this abundance, because we lose sight of, oh yes, this is an expand and a contract, expand and contract. This is not all yes in one direction forever. There has to be a limit. There has to be a, moving in the opposite direction or a different direction. And as witches, as pagans, as heathens, we hold paradox. That's a big part of what we do as magical people. We hold the yes and the no at the same time. We hold the on and the off, the life and the death at the same time. And learning how to walk with them, walk between them, all of that stuff. That's a big part of our work. So for me, the symbolism is very broad and very obvious this week, underneath our beautiful full moon in Aquarius. So speaking of which, let's get into this full moon in Aquarius. Okay, so our full moon in Aquarius is at 6:35 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, later in the day slash the next day for everybody else around the planet. And it is at 19 degrees of Aquarius. And as an aside, because that's what I do, one of the holidays that I didn't mention but kind of wanted to save till this part is one of the other holy days that we have this week on this day, August 11th, is the Feast of Father Sky, or Sky Fathers. And this is coming from our modern pagan friends and ancestors. And the Sky Father, or Father Sky, is Uranus. And that is the ruling planet of Aquarius, where Saturn is currently hanging out, where our full moon is currently hanging out. And Saturn is, of course, the ancient ruler of Aquarius. So some interesting stuff there. Okay, so let's talk about this full moon a little bit. This full moon, as I said, is hanging out with Saturn. In fact, Saturn and the full moon are more or less conjunct. The full moon is at 19 degrees, Saturn is at 22 degrees. And this full moon has the potential to be kind of funky, has the potential to be a lot, is probably the best way to describe it. Let's take a look at the sky for a second. We have the full moon and Saturn in Aquarius, as I just said. And then as we scooch around the chart, we still have that boy band hanging out in Taurus with the North Node, Uranus, and Mars all hugged up on each other in Taurus. We have the sun in Leo opposing the moon and Saturn, also at 19 degrees. And then the South Node out in Scorpio. And so it is making a grand cross in the sky, a big square, basically. And it is a lot of tension in the fixed signs. So if you have major planetary placements in Taurus, Leo, Scorpio, or Aquarius, you might be really feeling it this week. The whole of everything might just feel like, okay, this is altogether too much and not enough. So I'm done. It's time for a nap, which God is blessed. Go take a nap. I'm right there with you. But really, 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 what could this feel like? Well, the moon, surprisingly, doesn't is not super excited to hang out with Saturn. And when we have a full moon, that means that the sun is opposite the moon, and so that means that the sun is opposing Saturn in this chart. Um, and then we have, like I said, all of those planets hanging out right around 18, 19 degrees in Taurus, 17, 18, and 25 degrees, actually. And then we have the South Node at 17 degrees in Scorpio. So we really do have everybody hanging out in square to each other. And squares are like a big argument, basically. On the surface, squares really feel like, the whole system is basically telling you no. And my favorite nickname for Saturn is Angry Grandpa, and he's the king of no. He is the king of I don't think so. That's the edge, that's the boundary, you can't have any more. So, what this full moon might really feel like is uh, a moment where your scarcity is really in your face, where your lack is really in your face. Um, Saturn oppositions, Sun opposite Saturn, Saturn opposite whatever, can feel very isolating. They can feel very alienating. It can feel very lonely, not alone, but lonely, right? Like we want to be with other people. Um, and this is an interesting and funky dichotomy because Lughnasadh season is all about abundance. It's all about look how much I have, look how bright I am, look at how major I am. And Saturn is like, I'm not impressed. I don't care. Here's what you're missing. Here's what you're lacking. Look at what everybody else has compared to what you have. Don't you wish you had what they had? And so this is stirring up the Saturn Uranus square that we've been talking about for a long time, which is sort of this argument between tradition and revolution. It's stirring up the work that the North Node and South Node are bringing to us in Taurus and Scorpio, which is all about what we need for survival and how defensive we get around our survival needs and our survival resources. It's squaring or opposing the sun in Leo, which is all about being bright and loud and drawing attention to ourselves and being very proud and egocentric in the best and worst ways. And so there's a lot of ego tied up in this, and there's a lot of have versus have not. And so what I encourage you to do with this full moon is really think about power structures, think about the kyriarchy, think about restrictions, think about revolution, um, and think about, even in your bigness, what holds you back from feeling the fullness of yourself. When you think of, I wish I had what they had, what is it that comes up? Is it money? Is it time? Is it beauty? What is it? Where do you feel like the systems are stopping you from being your truest self? Where do you feel like your circumstances are stopping you from being your fullest self? And what work can you do around that? Um, I don't recommend staying alone on this moon. I do recommend hanging out with people, even if it's just taking a walk outside and walking through your neighborhood. But don't allow that to become a like weird, isolated, I'm people watching from behind my sunglasses kind of a thing. Calling myself out. That's me, actually. um, force yourself to go and have a conversation with somebody. Force yourself to go hang out with folks. Knowing that also you might be in a little bit of a grumpy mood. So be with people who can handle you in your fullness. But this full moon is really, asking us to do some funky work in the midst of trying to feel full and big and bright. Here comes Saturn pointing to all of the places where we are, um, empty and small and dim. And all of us have those spaces. All of us have all of those spaces in us. All of us have dim parts and bright parts. All of us have full parts and empty parts. Again, we sit with paradox, right? That's what we do. And with the Saturn opposition, it can feel like the only parts that are getting pointed at right now, the only parts that are getting emphasized are the parts that are lacking. So focus on where you are being supported. Focus on, this is a great moon to ask yourself to do some gratitude exercises, to look around the room and find, 3 things, right? That's the number connected to Saturn is 3. So 3 things in the room that you're grateful for, to pull yourself back from that boundary, that edge, that big no from angry grandpa. It's tough. It's tough. It could stir up a lot of drama too, because this is Leo season and Mars is in the mix. And so the ego is right there ready to go. We're going to get further into that in tarot here in just a second. But yeah, there's all of that. Also this week, our sun in sidereal astrology moves into Leo. And so there is, behind all of this stuff, that leonine thrust is still there, even though in tropical astrology, we're just about to move into Virgo. For everybody else around the planet, the moon or the sun is just moving into Leo. And so that energy is not going away anytime soon. Okay. Looking at the rest of the astrology for this week, Friday the 12th, the moon moves into Pisces. Oh, actually, before I say that, let me say this. For our full moon body work, we are either increasing and adorning and flexing, or we are relaxing and soothing and nourishing, whichever way you like to work with the full moon. Some people think of the full moon as a culmination and a continuing to do, and other people see the full moon as, nope, this is when we start to release and start to let go. This is the end of the cycle. So however you like to work with the full moon, Aquarius rules the legs and in particular the knees. And again, I am just a lady yelling on the internet, so always check with your trusted health advisor before following any of the advice for your physical body in this guide. But you can always work with the metaphor as well. So where are you taking a knee? Where are you kneeling down to a thing, and when is it right to come down onto your knee? Think about the yoga positions that incorporate really important knee shapes or knee work, and what they mean. Even if you are not physically practicing those yogic asanas, what is the spiritual practice behind that yoga pose? Think about that stuff with this moon as well. That's all here for us to guide us through this. Okay. And for our plant work, we are in another week of harvesting and pruning. And we know that this is, Lughnasadh season is all about harvesting. And so this full moon in Aquarius is another great time to go ethically harvest plant materials that we are going to use throughout the rest of this year and into next year. Why do we harvest so much at this time? Well, because lots of things are being produced at this time, but also magically, this is the high point of the sun. And so we want to harvest these plants when they are at the fullness of their magical and spiritual power. And also, this is generally the driest part of the year, or even if there's a lot of humidity, we get a lot of dry moments, depending on where you are. I know there's been a hell of a lot of rain around the world in the last couple of weeks, so good luck, you guys. It's either been way too much rain or totally not enough rain. I'm sure this climate change thing is going to work out, guys. Just have faith and, keep going with the driving your cars and stuff. It'll be fine. But it's generally really dry in a lot of places, and so this is a great time for drying herbs and storing them with the least likelihood of having mold or mildew develop on your plants. Okay. Moving into the astrology the rest of this week, Friday the 12th, we have the moon moving into Pisces, and that's it. Saturday the 13th, we have no astrology of note on this day. That brings us to Sunday the 14th. And on Sunday the 14th, we have fun stuff? No, of course not. We have at 10:10 a.m. the sun in Leo opposing Saturn retrograde in Aquarius at 21 degrees exactly. So yes, I know I was talking about the moon being or the moon sun thing and the sun being opposed to Saturn. It's close enough for what we were talking about with the full moon. It's certainly in the mix, but it's exact on Sunday. And so this whole week, or Thursday, Friday, Saturday, might really feel like a leading up to a crisis moment or a real low moment. Let's talk about what's happening when we have Sun oppose Saturn. It can again really feel like your lack or your scarcity is right up in your face. And with the sun in Leo in particular, and again, we have a square from Mars and North Node and all that stuff hanging out in Taurus, Uranus. It can really draw up some ego in us, and envy or jealousy may really rear its head as the means through which we are expressing our lack and our feelings around scarcity. Instead of just being depressed about it, we might also be really excited to argue about it or be defensive with other people or be jealous of them. So just be with yourself on that. What do I always say? You can always put yourself in timeout. It is always a good time to go to timeout. If you need to take a walk around a block, if you need to say, hey, I got to excuse myself from this conversation, whatever. The people who matter won't mind, and the people who mind don't matter, right? So, that's us being good witches and good pagans, is saying, I've had enough. I'm going to have a tantrum. I'm going to go over there. I'll be back. I'm going to go have my little tantrum. I'll be right back. Hold that thought. So this might be a weekend where that stuff really, really gets stirs up for us. So just sit with yourself with that. Do what you can. Talk to a friend. Schedule a therapy session. Talk to your tarot reader or your witch or your astrologer as well. But where it is safe and healthy for you to push into these uncomfortable feelings, and I know that it's not safe or the right thing to do for everybody, but where it is right, or when it is right for you to push into these funky, funky feelings, allow them to point to what is working and what is not working. On the most neutral level, that's what we're doing when the sun opposes Saturn, is we are just taking a moment to look at the structure of the thing and to say, this part works, this part does not work. And then later, when our head is a little more clear, we can make some decisions about what we want to do about the parts that are working and the parts that are not working. What we want to really check ourselves on is our subjective opinions about why a thing might be working or not working. Because in this very pessimistic mindset, we're probably going to pick all the wrong stuff, right? We're probably going to just hurt our own feelings. So if it's safe and healthy for you to push into these funky feelings, that's what we're looking for. What's working? What's not working? Later, I will deal with my opinions around that when I'm in a better mindset, and I will have some decisions about what I want to do about that stuff. And again, if that's not work that you're ready to do, don't do it. Don't worry about it. It'll become apparent to you eventually anyways. There will be other Saturn aspects that we can work with that are a lot easier, that are going to point to the same information in a way less harsh manner. So this is not work that we're not going to do. We have a lot of forms that we can approach it in. It's tough this weekend, and it's very acute and in our faces. So there's that. Super fun, right? Who doesn't love some of that? Also on this day, At 2:28 p.m., we have Mars in Taurus trine Pluto retrograde in Capricorn at 26 degrees. And this aspect is also doing the same thing. What's working and what's not working. Mars and Pluto, generally, we don't want them hanging out with each other. This is a trine. And so they're both like, hey, let's fight and blow stuff up. I don't know if you've been paying attention to what's going on in America, but there's, a variety of things. Not that we're the only country in the world, because there's a variety of things happening in other countries too. But we are seeing this power struggle happen right now. We are seeing God kings be told no by traditional forces and traditional power structures, whether we agree with any of the parties involved or not, right? We're watching that happen. And Mars and Pluto are really excited to be violent about it. They're really excited to be aggressive and defensive and fight about the thing in particular. And they are also focused on what's working, what's not working, and a show of strength. And so here again, I want to remind you, if you start to feel jealousy and envy and aggression, time out. Put yourself in time out, witch. Put yourself in time out, witch. Okay, thank you, please, for the group. Thank you. Okay, and then Monday the 15th, we have our disseminating moon in Aries at 2:51 a.m. at 7 degrees of Aries. And this is bringing us into that warrior stance once again. Where is it right for me to flex? Where is it right for me to be aggressive? And I'm asking you, is it really? Is it right to be aggressive? Also on this day, at 6:04 a.m., we have Mercury in Venus trine the North Node in Taurus at 17 degrees. It's going to wake up that square, that big square thing through the fixed signs that's happening. And anything that we've got going on with the North Node, and we have some, earlier, hey, it's time for that, just so you guys know. We've got North Node stuff with that big square. And here comes Mercury kind of poking at it as well. North Node stuff can feel really fated and really destined. Like the gods have decreed it has to go down like this. And Mercury can help that message sort of coalesce in our mind in a really clear way. This is another day where I'm really encouraging you to just question your motives, question where you're coming from. If you're coming from a defensive place, if you're coming from an angry place, that's not the move. That's not the moment. Now, all of that being said, I am a fire sign through and through. So I love a good argument. I love to fight about stuff, right? But we really are in a pretty special place right now. And I've said this several times in the last few weeks, and I'm going to keep saying it as we move through summer. If something feels off, if something feels weird, grab your people and walk the fuck away. Get out of that situation, step away, move away. Today is not the day. There's just so much wild, chaotic, in a bad way, violent, destructive energy in the air right now. That this could be a moment that it feels like I've received a message from the gods that I'm supposed to go do this wild stuff, I'm just saying. Question that shit if it comes up for you, please. All right. Tuesday the 16th, we have Mercury in Venus trine Uranus in Taurus at 18 degrees. So yes, it's going to ding, ding, ding all the way through all of those cats that are hanging out there at that spot. And this might be the day where there is some fallout from the stuff that happened over the weekend. One of the things I didn't mention about the disseminating moon with Aries is oftentimes things will come to fruition at the full moon, and then the settling out from that thing or the fallout from that thing occurs a few days later as we move into the disseminating moon. And so it's like at the full moon, the fruit the fruit appears. At the disseminating moon, the fruit ripens. And so we get to eat the results of our tantrums or whatever it was that was happening over the weekend. So again, just be really present with yourself, because do you want to eat the fruits of whatever the hell happened on Sunday? You know what I'm saying? That thing. Mercury wants to talk about it. Uranus, is bringing in really shocking information, sudden changes, abrupt shifts to the environment. Um, so from a so there's all of that stuff. Let me just say from a neutral standpoint, Mercury trine Uranus can be really fantastic for travel, really fantastic for meeting new people, going to new places, and learning new things. So, if somehow the weekend was relatively drama free for you, good job. We're all very proud of you. Shut up, sit down. But also, this could be a really great time to study some new stuff, just really straightforwardly. Put yourself in a position to meet some new people, go to a place you've never been to before. It's really delightful, and we get a lot out of it. But we also may suddenly receive a piece of information that puts the last few days into a different context, a more clear context, a less clear context. Um, it drama, drama, drama all week long or all weekend with this, wild full moon. And then here comes Mercury trine Uranus. That's like, but did you know XYZ? And then, oh my gosh, wow. Okay. Also on this day, Tuesday 16th, the moon moves into Taurus. And so we are going to have extra emphasis on the North Node in Taurus, Uranus in Taurus, and Mars in Taurus. The 17th Wednesday, we really have no astrology of note. And then that will bring us into next week, Thursday, where we have our half moon in Taurus, which we'll talk about on next week's podcast. And that brings us to our tarot card for the week. And it is the Seven of Wands. Okay. So what do we have in the Seven of Wands? I am looking at the Pamela Coleman Smith Waite Tarot deck here, aka the Rider Waite deck, the Smith Waite deck, etc., etc. And what we have on this card is a person that is standing up on a piece of ground, holding a staff or a wand in front of them, possibly in a defensive manner. They seem to be blocking their body with it. They have a look on their face that might be afraid or mad. They're definitely not smiling. They definitely do not seem like they're having a good time. And in front of them are 6 other wands. And at first blush, when we look at this card, what it feels like for a lot of people is a person defending themselves from a bunch of attacks. And isn't that appropriate for the astrology that we have this week? Interesting. It's almost like magic. I'm sure it's just a coincidence, as we like to say here on the podcast. So let's talk about this person for a second. First off, the Seven of Wands correlates to Mars in Leo. And no, this year we do not have Mars in Leo, as we talked about. We know Mars is hanging out in Taurus, but square to Leo, right? But it gives us a sense of the feeling behind this card, right? Mars is aggression and drive and passion. Mars is excited to fight for it and fight about it. Is eager to be defensive, so eager that we might just switch into being offensive, right? We're not going to wait for that first strike. We're going to just go ahead and get out there and let them know. In the best of regards, Mars is passionate and driven and really excited and hot and ready to go and, lusty and passionate. And that's all really good stuff, except for when it's misplaced. And then that becomes warlike or aggression, right? Unwanted passion is violation. And again, we think we're being defensive, but no one has said anything yet. So we're actually being offensive. And in Leo, we can be very proud about that stuff to the point of feeling very right or righteous about what we're doing, how we're acting, what we're saying. And so for me, there's 2 really important elements when it comes to this tarot card. The first one is that this person is wearing 2 different shoes. Have you ever noticed that? Take a close look at the Pamela Coleman Smith Waite card, Rider Waite card for the Seven of Wands, and look, This person is wearing two different shoes. Why? Because they goddamn feel like it. That's why. Who are you to ask, anyways? At the heart of this card is an insistence, even if it's a really small one, on being our individual selves, being our own unique self, and having some pride in that, being passionate about being our own unique self. But we don't look like we're proud in this card, right? We're not crowing in this card. We're not like prancing around like, look at me and my two shoes. I'm so spiffy. We look like we're in a fight. And so that brings me to the other thing that I think is really important about this card. You can't see what's at the other end of those six wands, right? They might be just stuck in the ground. What are we fighting against in this card? Who knows? Is anything even remotely coming for us in this card? Who knows? And that also speaks very closely to the nature of Mars. I'm ready to fight, even if I'm alone in an entirely empty room, right? I'm ready to get freaked out about it. So this card, I think, is really here to help us manage our emotions and manage our defensiveness and our aggression this week, where we have all of these opportunities to be jealous, to be envious, to be defensive, to be freaked out and on guard about stuff. Maybe so much so that it turns out that we are the ones that are starting the fight, that we are the ones that are starting the argument. And so this card is a big reminder to us, like, hey, back it up two steps. Who is even talking to you? Why are you taking this so personal? Why do you feel so defensive around this? And at the core of that question might be, am I feeling defensive around my unique way that I'm moving through the world? Am I feeling jealous or envious around other people getting attention for things that I thought were particularly mine? Right? Could be something like that. Like, this is me and my uniqueness. How dare you compare my thing to your thing? It could be all of that type of stuff. But we want to remember, we have the right to be ourselves. And in fact, however our life is being lived is not meant for comparison. One of the great pieces of wisdom out there is that comparison is the thief of joy. Before I saw everybody else, I was happy with my thing. And then I saw what everybody else had. And now I'm mad. I got two stupid shoes that don't match. What the damn, Where before it was like, I wear two different shoes. Check me out. I'm a baller, right? And now we see that everybody else is wearing two of the same shoe. Now I'm a weirdo and now I'm mad about it. Could be something like that. We have the right to be our unique selves. That is a sovereign fact. But times like this can sometimes make us feel weird about our uniquenesses and our idiosyncrasies, and feel like we are less than the folks around us who have two shoes that are the same shoe. So much so that we might feel like we need to get into an argument, we need to fight about it, we need to be defensive, we need to act out because we're feeling jealous or envious, all of that kind of stuff. So the other thing that can come through with this is how that plays out in the roles that we play in our lives. This conversation could just simply be have versus have not within ourselves, just looking at ourselves and looking at the world. But there also could be a sense of like, I have to be this for this thing, I have to be this thing for this person in my life or that person in my life. And that keeps me from doing this thing that I really wish I was doing instead. My parent or my partner or my child, is ailing in some way, perhaps. And so I need to be there for that person. And that's robbing me from having this other life. Or I have to work 55 hours a week, and that's robbing me of this other life. Those are all totally legitimate places. And in this week, that stuff may come up for us and come up for us in a way that we want to pout about it, be angry about it, be shitty about it. I'm going to say, give yourself a minute to be shitty and then walk away, right? Or walk away first and then go think your nasty thoughts for a minute. I'm a witch. I'm going to tell you that it's probably stuff I shouldn't, but we're all human, right? And Uh, and we do get defensive. We do feel envious of people around us. We do feel slighted by the circumstances of our life sometimes. That's just real. I think it's harmful for us when we don't acknowledge that we're feeling those funky feelings. Um, but also, feeling a funky emotion is not the same as acting on a funky emotion. And I think it's really healthy when we can sit with ourselves and go, wow, I am really having a pout about this. I am super tilted about the following subject. I just saw that so and so got this brand new thing, and man, I am livid because I'm looking at my two separate shoes that I was super proud of 5 minutes ago, and now I feel like a dork. And I don't want to deal with any of this. I don't want to be here. I don't like anything. It's all stupid. I want to go home. I think it's very healthy for us to acknowledge when we are having moments like that for ourselves. That's precisely what timeout is for. It's like, let me go tuck myself over there and have a little pout because I'm all freaked out about this thing. I'm all tilted about it. But that's also the time where I say to myself, I'm not going to act on these feelings. I'm going to acknowledge that I feel this. I'm going to say, I'm sorry, Megan. That sucks. I'm bummed too. It's okay. We're still going to hang out. We're still doing this. It's going to be okay. These are my thoughts. This is not what everybody else is thinking necessarily. And I can feel these things and I don't have to act on these things. I can recognize that I'm feeling bummed out about this and I don't have to move on it. So this could just be a week where, that kind of stuff is really, really in our faces. And I really recommend, again, as I was saying before, where it's healthy for you to just stop and say, from the most neutral standpoint, what is working and what is not working. Am I getting really super defensive around some part of this because I had to build it myself or I had to figure this thing out myself? And so my ego is really woven into this work when in fact, it's just the universe pointing out a flaw in the plan. It's not coming for me. It's just saying, hey, that part doesn't work. You should probably fix that before you go forward. And it feels like a personal attack. I'm taking it as a personal attack when that in fact is not what's happening. That stuff. I know. It's a lot of funky stuff. We've got good things on the way, I swear, I think. I'm honestly making that up. I'm just saying that we have good things on the way. I'm sure it's going to be fine. But yeah, at the heart of the Seven of Wands is a moment where we are feeling really restricted by the roles that we play in our life, the circumstances that we have in our life. We might be feeling, again, jealousy or envy, and ultimately really defensive about that stuff. And what do we want to do about that? How are we going to sit with ourselves in that stuff? And so that brings us to our magic and our spell casting and our ritual work that we might do this week. With all of this funky energy, this might be a week that you're like, I don't want to do any magic. I'm not feeling that. And that is totally okay. Always and forever, I am going to encourage you to listen to your intuition when it comes to spell casting, spell crafting, ritual work, magical work of any kind. First and foremost, listen to your gut. If it feels right to do it, push into it. If you're like, I don't think so, don't do it. No problem. There's always next week. There's always next time. We're not going to miss out on opportunities to do magic. That's not a big deal. If you are thinking about doing magic or spell crafting this week, first off, think about the stuff that's up. Defensiveness, anger, frustration, and feeling limitations, real or otherwise. So where can we sit with those restrictions? What magic and spellcrafting can we do to help us sit with the restrictions that we do have in our life? Because we all have those restrictions. We all have those boundaries and those edges, right? Where can we sit with that stuff? And what work can help us sit with that stuff? But other things that we can do that are very dedicated to Lughnasadh season would be things like feasting with community. Yes, of course, still COVID is raging. So of course it's going to be an outdoor barbecue, right? We're not doing anything in the house. Plus it's too hot. But getting together with friends and hanging out, doing what you can to, contribute to the group, and knowing that there might be this nagging little voice in the back of your head that's like, I only brought potato salad, but Carol from down the street brought two potato salads. Show everybody. Right. That's right. I'm prone to feeling defensive, right? That things. Know that, if we are connecting with community, if we are being generous and moving from our heart centered place, that we might be feeling that lack and thinking like, oh, if only I could have done more. Shut that shit down. Um, we might connect with friends and family and ask them to tell us what it is that we bring to the table, right? Another gratitude exercise is asking people to tell you what they are grateful for in their relationship to you. And it can be really hard, let me say, as a side note, because I've done this before and it was horrifying. It can be really hard to hear just how important and impactful you are in other people's lives. So be prepared for that. But feasting on this full moon is absolutely a wonderful holy act. Lighting torches and doing a torchlight procession. Make sure your neighbors know what your politics are before you head out. Let them know they're invited to join. Let them know this is about paganism and nothing else. Very appropriate. Any kind of ancestor work this week is also very, very appropriate. And working with symbols like literally a head, the head of something, a spear or a spear point, an arrow pointing up, um, as well as uh, animals like peacocks, roosters, and the phoenix are all very appropriate things to work with in our spellcrafting, to work with on our altars, that kind of stuff. A really great stone for this week is Amazonite. A really great plant for this week is fern. And food and drink, of course, I'm always going to say whatever is in season in your area. That's going to be the very best stuff to put on your altar, to cook as a sacred thing. But you also might work with ginger this week. You also might work with parsley this week, pears, all of that kind of stuff. Very, very appropriate. Chamomile as well. Very appropriate. As offerings on your altar, or elements in spellcrafting or spells that you are doing this week. But yeah, any kind of spell work around ancestor stuff. This is also another really great week for writing poetry. So, as a ritual or as a spell, you might write some poetry. To bring some things through, to release some things as a means of having a conversation with these funky parts in yourself. We talked about this last week. Poetry is just so profoundly powerful as a means of talking to yourself in a spiritual way, or talking to deities and other entities, and ancestors for that matter, all of that stuff. Another way of addressing the lack and those like really funky defensive feelings as a holy act would absolutely be go to a cemetery and clean up some of the forgotten headstones. That would be a beautiful offering to community. It's anonymous, it's for yourself, but it's also for the ancestors. Um, Cleaning off their headstones, giving them a little sweep, maybe bringing some fresh flowers, anything along those lines is totally, totally appropriate. Obviously, do that in a place where that kind of activity is okay, or I'm not telling you to break a law or anything, but you do you, babe. Witches in the graveyards, I know that you know how to conduct yourselves. um, and and yeah, I think that's really the stuff that I think is going to be the most helpful for us this week. Talk to people if you feel like you are really getting swamped in these vibes. Check in with a therapist. Check in with a counselor. Yes, it's okay to talk with friends about this stuff, but it might be friends that are stirring this stuff up for you, right? And also, our friends are our friends and they do care about us, they do love us, but they don't necessarily have the psychological training to give us the very best advice, right? Goddess bless, but sometimes our friends are really rad for venting, but they are not necessarily the best people to talk to if we actually need help on something. And so I'm just being real about that. So talk to a person. If you feel like you're getting swamped down in this stuff, talk to somebody. All right, very quickly, our roundup. Thursday, the 11th, 6:35 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, full moon at 19 degrees of Aquarius. Um, we talked about the astrology of this day. It's a mess. Okay. Friday the 12th, our moon moves into Pisces. Saturday the 13th, we got nothing. Sunday the 14th, we have the moon, excuse me, sun in Leo oppose Saturn retrograde in Aquarius at 21 degrees. And we have Mars in Taurus trine Pluto retrograde in Capricorn at 26 degrees. We also have the moon moving into Aries. Then on Monday the 15th at 2:51 a.m. Pacific Standard Time, we have our disseminating moon at 7 degrees of Aries. We have Mercury in Venus trine the North Node in Taurus at 17 degrees. On Tuesday the 16th, we have Mercury in Venus trine Uranus in Taurus at 18 degrees, and then the moon moves into Taurus. And on Wednesday the 17th, we have nothing in particular. And so here are our lunar phases moving from Leo to Taurus, still hanging out in these fixed signs, fixing us in the center or the very heart of the season of summer and the very middle midst of Lughnasadh season. And that is it. We have lots of work to do this week, and the universe is really letting us have it, but that's all right. We're tough. We're badasses. We're witches. I mean, come on, get out of here. Uh, that's it. Thank you so much to my patrons who support me and support this work. I'm so appreciative of it. You can join my Patreon for $1 if you just want to say thanks for this weekly ritual that we hold here on Ye Old Podcast. Folks who join at $5 and higher get lots of really cool benefits, but even at $1, you get a discount code. So come on, babe. At the $9 and higher level, you get access to the Patreon bag of holding that gets you access to the workbook for all of the Sabbats, the calendars, digital spells, and a lot more. The recordings of tarot circles that happen every month, which we have another one coming up this month very soon. And at the $23 level and higher, you get free readings with me throughout the year, a couple times a year, up to once a month, to check in on all of these transits for you personally and how they're going to play out in your life. Again, thank you so much to my patrons who support this work. It's pretty fucking badass. If financially supporting me is not an option for you, which is super realistic, please share this on social media. Like, comment, and subscribe on whatever your podcast service is where you listen to this. Giving it a rating is wildly powerful as well. All right, my friends, that is it. Good luck with this week. I know it's a lot. We've got this. It's going to be awesome. Except for the parts that totally suck. This whole thing is going to be great. Okay? Okay. Enjoy this beautiful full moon. It is already risen or just about to rise wherever you are. So enjoy. Blessed be, heathens.